This short video clip is designed to help you understand how to read your LPI report. Please don't get too hung up on the content of your own report. You'll get a chance to make much more sense of what it means from a leadership development point of view through the debrief template or through a coaching session or both. So please have your report in front of you and follow at the same pace of this video. So turning to the first page, you'll see it's a contents page. It starts off with the 5 practices data summary. So the LPI is measuring you on 5 practices of exemplary leadership. Then it goes on to some bar graphs associated with that summary. Then there's the leadership behavior ranking. So the LPI has a total of 30 leadership statements, and this page will help you understand your highest to lowest scores according to your observers. Then the report goes into some more detail around each of these 5 practices of exemplary leadership. Model a way, inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. Then there's a very interesting graph toward the end of your report, and this graph helps you understand how you rank against about 1 million leaders around the world. And finally, there's the responses to the essay questions. This is the qualitative data part of the LPI. So turning to the first page of your report, you'll see the heading there, the 5 practices data summary. So here are the details of the 5 practices. These are your scores on each of the 5 practices. There's a self column, there's an average column, and that average is the average of your observers. M is for manager, C is for co-workers, D is for direct reports, and O is for others. If you have many observers, you'll find that the report spills over onto second page. These scores are out of 60, so each of the 5 practices has 6 statements associated with it, and the maximum you could score was 10 in each of the statements. So that's 39 out of 60, 36 out of 60. You're wanting to be looking at how you compare between your score and your average score. So if the difference between these 2 scores is greater than 4, it means that you're in statistical disagreement with your observers, and if it's 4 or less, you're in agreement. So it's just a rough guideline on how aware you are. Do you see yourself as others see you on average? The next page is the 5 practices bar graphs, and this is simply a graph representation of the previous page. This is the leadership behaviors ranking page. So the first thing you'll notice on the left here is the scale that the LPI uses. So the scale is concerned with frequency of practice. As Jim Kouzes says, the author of the LPI, that talent is overrated. Leadership really is about practice. Now the scores going from highest to lowest here. This here is the practice associated with each of these statements. Remember, there's 5 practices of exemplary leadership, and your self-score is there for comparison only. If you've got an asterisk next to any of the scores, it means that the difference between your observers and yourself was greater than 1.5, which means you're in statistical disagreement with each other, which is a rough indicator that you're not self-aware in relation to that particular statement where you have an asterisk. Some interesting questions worth noting. Follows through on promises and commitments is a very important statement around trust. So if you don't follow through on promises and commitments, people will not trust you, and people don't want to be led by someone they don't trust. So you wanting to be scoring at least 8 on that one. Same for question number 14, treats people with dignity and respect. You want to be scoring high on that one, above 8, because nobody wants to be led by someone who doesn't treat them regularly with dignity and respect. And then question number 16 asks for feedback on how his or her actions affect people's performance, is usually the lowest scoring question on the LPI. So don't be surprised if you see that right at the bottom of your scores. Turning the page, you'll see the heading there, Model Away Data Summary. So we're now into the section of the report that covers each of the 5 practices in a little bit more detail. So you've got 6 statements associated with Model Away. These scores are a score out of 10. Again, there's the scale. And your average score does not include your self-score. It's just an average of your observers. Now you may find as you look at your observers there's one person's score that's a little bit different. We call this an outlier. Don't be too concerned if you have an outlier. It's not unusual. In fact, we'd say more than 50% of the reports we see has an outlier, someone who scores a lot different from everybody else. And that could be for a number of reasons. It could be a poor performer. It could be someone who's geographically isolated. It could be someone who just doesn't have much contact with you, or it could be a failure in your leadership. The following page is the model away bar graphs. It's just the graphs associated with the last page. And then there's the Inspire a Shared Vision summary. Again, 6 statements associated with Inspire a Shared Vision, and the same again on the scores out of 10. The graphs, then there's the challenge the process, the graphs enable others to act, the graphs encourage the heart, and the graphs. So moving to the next page, we see this is the percentile ranking. This is probably the single most interesting page on the entire LPI report, because this gives you a sense of how you rank against a population of over 1 million leaders around the world. You'll see here are the 5 practices: Model Away, Inspire, Shared Vision, etc. And these are your scores within each of the 5 practices, or your rankings. And over here is the ranking scale. The different colors represent the different observer groups, red being your self-score. So in order to make sense of the data, let's look at Model Away, and specifically let's look at the direct reports ranking here under Model Away. So we see this is about the 17th percentile. Now on this particular report, this leader scored 40 out of 60 from a direct reports perspective. So what this means is that an empirical score of 40 out of 60 is at the 17th percentile. In other words, 83% of people who have completed the LPI have scored better than 40 out of 60 under Model Away. You really want to be above the 30 percentile line on all of 5 practices as a very, very minimum. Research shows that people who are scoring, or leaders scoring in this area, lose money for their businesses long term. Ideally, you want to be at the 70th percentile mark. This is where exceptional leaders are typically scoring. And the research shows that leaders who score in this area can make up to 6 times more profit long term than the good leaders, whereas the leaders here are usually losing money long term. And then finally, your report moves into the open-ended essay question responses. So this is the qualitative side of the LPI. Your observers were asked 4 different questions, and they were able to fill in exactly as they wished and to write what they wished. So your report ends with the qualitative questions. So your next step is to now work through the LPI debrief template provided. This will help you understand your LPI from a leadership development perspective, and will orient you as to what to actually do with your report.